Well, happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're well. I'm Nick. I'm back again. Once you are on here live, let me know so I can, you know, I guess comment hello, comment hashtag live if you're watching this live with me. If you're watching the replay, hashtag replay, right? I'm just going to go ahead and get this pinned and added to the guides tab here real quick while everyone's jumping on here, so bear with me. There we go. All right, everyone's been tagged, it's pinned, cool. Lots of people are jumping on here, looks like, which is great. So yes, today we're going to talk about, so today's day 5 of the training, right? And today we're going to talk about basically why your labs and supplements, 3 main reasons why your labs and supplements, or your diets and supplements, I should say, may not be fully addressing your chronic symptoms. Looks like I'm seeing getting comments, but not able to see them, so I might need to have someone help me there with that. But yeah, today is an amazing training. So I guess just real quick, I'm curious in hearing your thoughts so far. Has this training so far been, how has it been, I guess? We're interested in hearing that. So again, I'm going to mention this. If you have not already, please message myself, message Brooklyn, Shia, or Alicia. We like to connect with you in Messenger to make sure that you're able to implement everything we teach. There's a lot of stuff. Going on behind the scenes that if you have sent us a message and you haven't heard back, just comment below. And also just a reminder, our enrollment period during this workshop is open. We opened it yesterday. So if you're considering joining us in one of our memberships, our 3 or 6 month memberships, you can go to limbicsystemrewire.com/program. It's also located, if you click on the cover page of this group, you'll be able to find that as well. But yeah, people are commenting, but I'm not able to see it, so hopefully we can get that figured out. Someone can help me with that. All right, so today we're going to talk about why your lab supplements and why your diets and supplements may not be addressing your chronic symptoms and getting relief from it. And also a couple of things here too. Comment questions as long as I can see them. Right, we'll go ahead and I'll be watching for those here in a little bit. But then also, if you are considering, just a couple quick things, if you're highly considering wanting to work with us, but maybe have some questions that I have not addressed during this training, or Brooklyn hasn't addressed as well, we'd be happy to set you up with one of our advisors. If that is you, that is the case, if you're considering it, please comment the word call, CALL, and I'd be happy to go ahead and jump on for you. We'd be happy to jump on. But yes, hashtag live. Lots of people jumping on here live. Okay, cool. Looks like I got a potential solution here. People commenting, which is great. All right. Now, let's jump into it, right? So we're going to give you, again, 3 reasons why they may not be addressing your health challenges. So the first one, so if you have your workbook out, please, go ahead and write this down. They don't always get to the root cause of why you have those health challenges and symptoms in the first place, right? As we talked about in this workshop, we believe when it comes to root cause, I don't even like using that term because it is so overused. The root cause is your leaky gut. No, it's your hormone imbalance. No, it's your detox system, whatever, all these different things. They can be affected, but we believe it's the chronic health challenges that you're dealing with is trauma or stressors throughout life, right? Again, toxins, infections, foods, mold, EMF, they can negatively impact your health. Yes, we're not saying it can't. But we believe in general, small to moderate amounts of those things shouldn't make you react into a massive flare-up, spinning you into months or years of sickness. That's not normal. Those around you, if you've been sick for a long time and people around you have been too, but then they get better, what's the difference, right? The root is even deeper than that, right? Again, as we believe it's rooted in the limbic system. Again, your limbics, don't get too caught up in these words, but the limbic system is those parts of your brain, different parts of the brain that basically control the entire body, all those different systems, right? Your hormone regulation, detox systems, your circadian rhythm, you name it, right? They're all controlled by that. So when that's affected, that's why those systems go out of balance, which again is from stress and trauma. So when you shift your perspective to that alone, right? Like that makes sense because I guess comment makes sense if that makes sense. Because if that does make sense to you, then that's the game changer. It takes a lot of pressure off yourself to have to, obsessively control your environment around you. Like having to basically sit in a corner or in bed or can't do and go out and live life that you used to live because you're trying to control how you feel because of the environment, right? Again, trying to control toxins around you, the foods you eat, and figure out what infections and toxicities are in your body. Once again, there's nothing wrong with supporting your health by, of course, getting adequate sleep, going and exercising, eating nutritious whole foods. Of course. But it becomes a problem when you can get stuck in those trauma loops, obsessing about those things, right? There's a difference between taking control and then obsessing. In Brooklyn, going back to her story briefly, right? I'll pause here for a quick second. Can this help with Lyme disease? Yeah, we've seen a lot of people come to us with that, as well as other co-infections that have tried different things, rounds of antibiotics, and whatever you want to call it, different things. And Brooklyn actually was diagnosed with that as well and started addressing that, but just stressed her body even more. So she got better among other people. But yeah, her story, again, very briefly, she got sick after the tipping point for her was a moldy apartment, right? Like I could see mold growing on paper that was in there. It was just a bad water leak. We thought it was just the mold, which kind of made sense. So for 4 years, we went in circles trying to figure out what the best mold detox protocol was. The Shoemaker protocol or there's a lot of them out there. But, doing that, and because we thought that's all that was wrong with her, right? We didn't realize it was actually the stress response, your fight, flight, freeze. Remember day 2? Fight, flight, freeze. That's what was going on in her brain and in her body, and it was created from all that and other things throughout life, other traumas, other stressors, and that she actually could calm the stress response by brain retraining was a game changer for her, right? So she went through the trial and error of putting focus on supplements, and they didn't get very far for her. And I know a lot of you have already shared that with us, haven't gotten very far. And even at the end, she would still have all these symptoms and health challenges at the end of the protocols. And when she addressed the true root cause from what we have found, right, of the problem, her limbic system, the brain, the health challenges and her symptoms started to go away in reverse for good. So how many of you would like to have that happen, right? How many of you are stuck in this cycle of, going doctor to doctor, doing supplement regimen to supplement regimens, continually restricting your diet, and you're fed up with it? And you're like, okay, I guess I'm feeling better, but am I really feeling better? Am I really getting rid of these health challenges, or am I just removing things that my body is perceiving as stress? It's like, I could do that. Anyone could. You can't avoid your way to health, I guess, in my opinion. That's just a belief I have, because I've seen it firsthand from, Brooklyn that it didn't work. But either way, because again, I watched her from start to end. And again, not saying they can't be helpful, supplements, right? Yes, there are certain times, and I think there can be a certain time and place for certain things like that. Not all of them, though. I've seen some documentaries and some research on the supplement industry in general, and there's a lot of stuff going on there that isn't too, positive either. But again, they likely alone will not calm the fight, flight, freeze stress response. If I could put brain rewiring into a supplement and then just give it, sell it for $20 a bottle, like a lot of people are saying, this will help you with this will help you with that. If I could do that, I would, but brain rewiring cannot be put into a supplement. It has to be done purposefully by yourself through your own purposeful intellectual thinking, right? The renewing of the mind, like the scriptures say. You have to address that stuff plus put it specifically to health, is why we're here, right? And again, they're great, but they likely, again, won't. The supplements cannot address the fight, flight, freeze stress response, which we believe is absolutely necessary for getting rid of health challenges for good. Okay? I mean, again, I get it though. I know that supplements can seem like the solution since you're used to going to a doctor, primary care doctor, or a naturopath or whatever. Maybe you get an antibiotic when you have an infection, and yeah, again, time and place for those things. And you've likely been trained to, take some type of medication for symptoms, like you have a headache, maybe take Advil. Or it may even seem like a cheaper option to just do a $20 supplement bottle from Amazon that promises to get rid of this or to detox that. I mean, if I could find a picture, we had garbage bags full of supplements. We call it the supplement graveyard because that's where supplements went to go and die because they didn't work or they made Brooklyn worse. And that was the case for many. Or maybe they didn't make her worse or necessarily, make anything worse, but they weren't helping her, I guess. After months of doing the same thing, it didn't make sense. But again, the reality though is that you get what you pay for, right? Buy cheap things, you'll get cheap results. Most of the time, right? Majority of the time, I should say. It may seem like the limbic system rewire program can be a big investment, really. I get it. But ask yourself, if you're not getting results with what you're doing, why would you continue to do the same thing, right? Like, I think it was, I don't remember who quoted it. It's probably been quoted by a lot of people, but to do the same thing but expect different results is crazy, right? And we were in that cycle for 4, 5, 6 years. I get it. But what happens if you don't? These are questions we have to ask ourselves, and this is what Brooklyn and I asked ourselves through this process. So we're trying to coach you, put our coaching hat on, and help you through this process too. What happens if you don't try something different, right? I believe, and Brooklyn I'm sure too, believes there's no better investment in your health because if your health is removed, it affects everything in life. Many areas, not everything, but many other areas, and it can tremendously limit you. I know for us, there was many birthday parties, many just family gatherings, many Christmas, birthday parties, New Year, whatever you want to call it, all the family gatherings was out for us, including Brooklyn's career as a nurse. He's gone, and spending time with kids, family, vacations, even just walking your dog, like those things were taken, right? And it's hard. I'm not saying it's like it was a trial, and I'm very grateful for it now. Hard to see in the moment. That's why we're here to try to help create awareness on this and guide you through this process. Because really think about how much your health matters to yourself and your family. I'm sure you've already thought that through, but just putting it into a different perspective is what I'm here to do, right? We're in the perspective shifting. We're trying to perspective shift here, right? And one of our graduates of our program, Patricia, she actually had a pretty interesting situation. She had kind of similar to Brooklyn's, but she had spent her and her daughter. It was more for her daughter, but they were both experiencing health challenges. Had spent years sick, trying the protocols again. The classic case, right, that we see. I know it may seem. Let me explain this first, I guess. She had been taking many protocols, maybe got a little initial relief for a few months, but come to find out back where it was when they stopped or when the protocol was done, didn't have much to invest and was super frustrated, right? We talked with her like this, and the person talked about like, hey, what do you want with your life? Ask yourself those questions as I'm explaining this. Obviously we want what God wants for us, but really think, what is important to you? What would it be worth to you to be able to spend more quality time with their kids, being able to go to their sporting events and traveling in the summertime on vacations? That's what Patricia said, and she decided, you know what? This process makes sense. It is a leap of faith in a way. Anything new can be, right? You're entrusting us in our process, but, she did the same thing, and those things came to fruition. Got her life back. And time back with your family and friends and those is precious, and you can't get it back, right? So the quicker you take action on it, if this connects with you, you don't have to believe 100% fully in it, but if you're like, gosh, Nick and Brooklyn and their process, they've been in my shoes, they've helped thousands and thousands of people with this exact process, I think it makes sense, right? And that's and again, she has started our process, going back to Patricia's story. Again, many years of trauma in her life and illness, and had been to countless doctors, spent thousands and thousands on tests and supplements and things like that. And she had things like anxiety, relation to health. She was extremely underweight, little to no energy, and was in emotional roller coasters. What she said, I was just emotional about everything. And then for fast forward 6 months later, the change in her health was unbelievable. It was awesome to see, and that's what gives me the goosebumps and stuff. Is that's really like what we're focused on here, right? Cost aside, what would it mean to you to be able to do those things? And a lot, like for us, we'd give everything, and we did pretty much. But more energy. She has more energy than she had in years. Almost every health challenge she had before was gone. And she had things like severe fatigue. I'm talking severe. If you think you're an extreme case, this was one of our extreme cases. Like, those, I don't think you're too far gone. Like severe case, severe fatigue. I mean, brain fog, extreme food sensitivities, and to the point where she was avoiding everything, and that developed social anxiety. I mean, I could go on and on. And she went from having just a few foods. I'm just focusing on a few things here. A few foods to be able to eat wherever she wants. Any restaurant. I know it's kind of like, so what? It's like, well, in our family at least, a lot of memories and stuff and memories and experiences are revolve around food, right? You don't have to necessarily partake in the food, but I mean, going out to restaurants and think about all the family gatherings and just barbecuing and grilling and things like that. And that was a huge deal for her because she had always reacted to anything outside of her 10 food diet. And even the smell sensitivity. She has candles burn. I mean, these are just things she's shared with us. If they seem small to you, they were big to her. But being able to do all those things, plus burning candles, or essential oils, I guess, wearing perfume and other things that her symptoms would not allow her to do for a long time. And of course, more calm, less reactive, and had back to the healthy weight, like she said. And more than that, though, gaining the confidence and freedom and the ability to see a different future for herself that she believed was possible, right? And we coached her, and she was awesome to work with. And we're happy for her, and we love her, right? And that's what we want for everyone here. Again, just think about these things. And one comment on that, then I'll come into the next the other two things. As far as the three reasons, I'll give you the next two reasons here in a minute. But I know I'm going to pause here for a moment. How many, just, you don't have to comment, but how many of you feel like you're just too far gone, or you can't be helped because you've tried so many protocols, or you've tried so many things, or it's been super long, or whatever? I want to tell you that you're in a great spot. You're in the right spot, I should say. Not a great spot because we don't want you to stay there, but you're in the right spot because that is, I can't tell you how many times people reach out to us and say, you're my last resort. I've tried everything. I mean, of course, basically everything, right? Tried many different things, and this process makes sense, although I'm not fully on 100% sure. I'm going to trust it with you. It can seem extreme around you because you're kind of one of the only ones that may be in this extreme trial that you are, and that's probably true because it's right. But I want you to look at that in a positive way. It's not the norm. Meaning, most individuals can have, they have all these systems working properly in their body. We'll get you back there. Anyways, just wanted to hear that. But going back to Patricia though, right? She spent years of her life sick and spent thousands and thousands of dollars on labs and supplements and things like that, and and that's just the monetary stuff. Time is more valuable, in my opinion. The older I get, the more I realize that, and the more I watch my 11-month-old turn into a 1-year-old here pretty soon. Time is precious, right? So that's a high value for me, at least, which is why I like spending time with my family, even if it's too much sometimes, But time is precious on this earth, and we want to use it for God's glory. But she can do it, you can too, right? And if you're currently unable to work, and you do decide to join us and implement what we teach, you'll probably be able to get back to work and get the investment you made in this program back, and then a lot more, obviously. So think about the questions, right? Like, what is that future you, or I guess the old self you had, getting back to that worth to you? What do you see and envision yourself, right? That's one of our main things we want you to hold true to. Think about your big why, like why you want to do this. It's important to have. Is that why worth it? And I know for like I said, for Brooklyn and ourselves, we'd give anything for that. And things. But anyways, family is the family. Your family around you too. I'm sure they would agree as well. Because me personally, I'm thankful for brain rewiring too. Brooklyn including myself too, but Brooklyn is a completely different person, like for the better. Like I don't even remember what it was like having her sick. I remember the first time I told her that, she was almost in tears. She's like, "Wow, really? We thought we'd have to battle it for life, honestly, and I was ready for that, but it wasn't what I, and if it was the will, what God was wanting us to have to go through and experience because it was a thorn in our side, then I was prepared for it, but I wasn't going to give up without a fight, and neither was she. And she had to do, if she can do it, and thousands of our clients can, remember, you can too, right? So again, you also have to ask yourself too, what happens if you don't do anything and you just keep on the same path you're on? If you keep doing, I kind of mentioned this earlier, but just again, questions you have to ask yourself. If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. So what does that look like for you right now, right? Don't accept it either. Like, I know, because we've been talking with, I know it can be very easy to say, I don't know, I just kind of, this is just the way things are and whatever, right? I guess that's kind of a good mindset to like accept it, which is a good start, but don't stay there though. Being in constant brain fog and severe fatigue, being bedbound for an unknown period of time, like don't accept that. Like don't like give up, I should say. If you don't make change, you could, stay the same, or potentially it could get worse. It could get better, sure. God, I believe in a God of miracles, absolutely, but I believe we are also called to take responsibility of our own actions and stuff, and this process is a game changer and does. And for Brooklyn and myself too, but she had to do something different. Like she was at the point where she could not afford mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually to wait. Because after years of the different protocols, we think she was really only making her stress worse because her mindset was getting way like worse. And I just watching for years, watching her life pass away and mine, right? Not that we weren't trying, but she was to the point where she was so sensitive. She couldn't even tolerate the expensive protocols. I remember spending $3,000 on some liquid supplement. It was a box for 2 months. And she took one little thing of it and instantly was bedbound for like a week because of that, right? She was so stressed. It's like, well, there's $3,000 we just threw away. Like, I laugh, but it's almost kind of like painfully laughing. It's like, good grief, where does it end? That's the thoughts I had in my mind. And so we focus on brain wiring, the most 100% natural way you could possibly get back because it's there. It's the new way to do things. That's the old stuff, right? The supplements and stuff. Sure, maybe for like if you think about this, if you're taking supplements just say to get energy, and then you reset your system so you naturally have more energy, you don't have to spend money on that supplement anymore, right? This is natural. This is boosting the way God created you to be, like boosting your immune system, your nervous system. You get it, but it's a game changer. I keep saying that, but it is. And imagine being but being symptom free for a moment, right? Think about these things. Imagine not ever having to think about symptoms again, and not having to rely on the supplement box you have anymore, right? Like again, Brooklyn and many others have gone through the process, have done that, right? We truly want this for you. You have to want it for yourself too. And one last comment on this too, because then I'll get into reason number 2. That was kind of a long explanation for reason 1, but I feel like it needed to be said. And there's other things I'll say today that might make you feel a little, step on your toes a little bit, but it's also questions that anyone should ask if they were a good coach. But we also, Brooklyn's story before, she was in, functional like health coach type thing and was all about that stuff. We were just we've realized we don't want to, that didn't work. We also run another group for those types of people. Not run a group, we have a group. We were running it, but now it's just kind of sitting there. But I can't tell you how many people I see spending that were there 7 years ago still commenting the same thing but different. It's just sad. It's hard to see, but at the same time and we've presented this information to them a lot, but they just, I guess it's a timing thing. But anyways, reason number 2, labs are not always 100% accurate. How do I know that? Well, years back, I worked for a medical laboratory. I was on a tech. I was in there, one of their associates and client representatives to help our clients. But there were so many, I'll give a brief story on this and then I'll jump into the reason. I remember working with a doctor. He was out in California and they were sending they were drawing blood on their patients and sending us labs. And one day he called me and said, Nick, your CBC instrument's off. said CBC. I mean, a complete blood count, but I said it's off. Really? I don't know. I didn't want to. But I'm like, we have thousands of people that work with us, and that's the first person, and I haven't heard anyone else mention that. I'm like, he goes, yeah, it is. And then months would go by. Come to find out, and there was a lot of people starting to mention that. Come to find out, the instrument was off. Several months later, it was slightly off, and then slight adjustments that needed to be made to make it accurate. Right? Not only that, when you ship your blood samples, unless you're getting it drawn at the hospital, obviously, but when you ship your blood samples and your urine samples and your saliva samples across the country, it's in a UPS bag or a FedEx bag, right? It's going to go through a lot of it. I mean, you have to control the, there's environmental controls. They do all their procedures. I'm not saying that they're all inaccurate, but I'm saying there are times where it can be. But even more so, it's just a snapshot in the moment, right? How you feel mentally and emotionally and physically can be more important than what that result says, right? Just things to think about. Because, again, it's a snapshot in the moment. Because I bet I would, if I had my blood my labs drawn, I might have some mycotoxins in my urine or in my body, right? But I am completely fine. At least I feel like that and I act like that. I don't know. You could tell me. Maybe I feel look off. I don't know. But there are times when people feel super healthy and they go down and spiral into unhealthy thoughts, negative thoughts, and when they're told that a lab test came back and they have extremely high levels of whatever. Inflammation, mycotoxins, or whatever. And that was the case for Brooklyn. I developed a dread for going to the doctor because I knew if the results didn't show the way we wanted them to, it was going to be down, not only a downer for us because it physically wasn't working, but mentally and emotionally and even spiritually it affected us. It was going to be a long week sitting there. Wow, what? We've been there. It's hard. And she would dwell on those then for a long time on the news, and she was told, maybe she shared this earlier, or maybe she can share it later, but I'll give you my version of the story. She was told she had the dreaded HLA gene, and that it would be much harder for her to detox. I think they said 2 or 3 times longer to detox, and they'd have to stay away from. She'd have to stay away from most buildings because the environmental sensitivities because of that gene. And she identified with that gene, and it was not a good several years with that, once that happened. And she ruminated on that a lot and how she would never be healthy again. And it was a hard time, So I'm looking over here for some comments. I haven't been able to see them on my computer. But yeah, it was rough, But here's the good news though, right? Because of epigenetics, if you've heard of epigenetics, basically that's you can turn your genes on and off or how your body reads them. You can do that through neuroplasticity, and we actually had an example of that. It's pretty cool. So we're going to get into positive stuff, right? We had a client who actually was told. She said she saw her MTHFR gene. She didn't see it. Her lab results showed it. It was adjusted and changed by going through our program. There's a quote from her. She said, I wanted to share my gene experience. Brooklyn spoke about turning genes on and off through the process of what we implement. Years ago, this is her quote, when I was really sick, I tested positive for the MTHFR gene. If you don't know what that is, don't worry about it. Right? But if you do, this goes for you. Later, and this is a continuation of her quote, later I worked through the process of recovering naturally, including lots of neural rewiring stuff. Right? So this is her words. Last time I went back to the clinic, I do not have the MTHFR gene. I literally turned the gene off. He said he has seen that happen several times. This is just one example. So that's just one example of how powerful brain rewiring can be if done properly. I'm not saying just, yes, we're giving a lot of great tips, and I know some of you are like, I'm going to try it on my own. Like, well, I can't tell you the hundreds of people that have come to us having tried it on their own for a year and a half, and it's like, that's a lot of wasted time too. But anyways, it's a one example of many, right? I guess I'll go through a few of them here for people. Again, we don't require lab results to be ran at all. Like your one-time investment with us, and that's it, right? And then you have these tools for the rest of your life. There's no extra labs, so anyone listening here who's wanting to get removed of that, unless you want to keep doing it, that's fine. That's where these testimonies come in because some people still want to see their doctor, which is totally fine. And they have labs ran, and here's some quotes. Like Tracy, another past client, mentioned her ANA markers are normalized, and inflammation has calmed, which she said she couldn't remember the last time it was in range. It had been years. Same thing with Lyme markers, stress hormones, and so on. So if they can, you can too. Another client near and dear to me, Stacy, her inflammation markers shifted dramatically. They went from 6,000 to 600. That's a big difference. Tanya is a type 1 diabetic, had always battled high blood sugar levels, and now she says that's the most stable she's ever been. And the only thing that all of these people had done was our process and our program, right? So again, try your best. All that being said, I'm not saying that they're trash and they're waste, right? But what I'm saying is shift your perspective this way. Try your best not to identify yourself with the numbers on the sheet of paper, right? If you're doing these protocols, let them be ran, and then let the doctor do what they're supposed to do with it. Not up to you, right? Shift your focus on this process. And again, I want to be clear. I'm by no means telling you not to run labs and that they have no value, but what I am saying is they're not always accurate, and are many times they are just a snapshot in the moment when they're collected. So don't beat yourself up just because the numbers on the lab are off. Leave it in your doctor's hands, like I said. Very key, important tip. And speaking of labs, though, just for a moment, it brings up a great topic I mentioned earlier. Remember when I said I may say some things that step on your toes? Well, this is just if it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. But this is going to be a powerful exercise I want you to do on your own if you want to. Really, anyone who's in a health challenge or in a health trial needs to ask themselves these questions. What are you currently doing to get your health back, right? Then ask yourself, okay, you have that down. Is it working? Are you seeing results? And be real with yourself, right? And if you are seeing results, is that lifestyle livable, right? And then ask, how much is it costing me, and is it worth it, right? So if you're wherever you're at, right, are you able to tolerate the protocols? Again, I can't tell you how many people that we see in our groups talking about how they cannot tolerate protocols, or they get to the end of one and they still are stuck with the health challenges and symptoms. And again, for Brooklyn and myself, we were spending thousands each month for many years, none of which she was eventually none of which she could even handle. They flat out just didn't work. So she was even told too by some of the top doctors she was seeing to incorporate neuroplasticity into your life. Please incorporate it, right? Like the good doctors will, in my opinion, I mean, they're all good doctors, but if they're aware of this, they would recommend it too. We wish we would have listened sooner because it was a painful thing, right? So take out a pen and paper, it's today or whatever, if you're contemplating, like, does it make sense of what I'm doing? And just add up what you're currently paying right now. Because I think you'd be really surprised. This is my coaching hat that I'm putting on here to try to help you, right? Think about protocols, and I'll tell you what we did, and these numbers are from Brooklyn and myself. So when it comes to labs, right, initially they can be anywhere from a couple $100 to a couple $1,000, sometimes more. We'll average it out to a couple $100 per month. Supplements, I mean, you can go bonkers with that. They could be, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 initially, based depending upon the protocol you're doing. Maybe not that much, but let's just go $300, right? And then just adding in all the different visits you have, right? The different visits with the coaches or the practitioner. That could be, I don't know. I know one appointment for one of ours was a $1,500 initial appointment, then every follow-up appointment, which was bi-weekly, was $300. So let's just say it was $400. And then throw in all the miscellaneous stuff that you're trying to do on your own that you've accumulated, right? $150. Things like monitors, EMF protection devices, colonics, red light therapy. I was just talking with a friend I met, an old acquaintance. He's a good Christian dude. Met up in the parking lot of Ace Hardware. I was just up there yesterday and talking about how he's doing this continual maintenance work, which is like this PRP therapy and IV therapy. But that stuff adds up too. So conservatively for Brooklyn and myself, we were spending about $1,000 a month. That is extremely conservative, right? And that's just from one type of protocol and practitioner. And we work with dozens of them, right? And that doesn't account the loss of wages, being a nurse, and all the different, like I said, the different devices. We had red light saunas, we had red light Bacchus square thing with red light therapy in it. I don't know. It was crazy. All these different stuff. And the $300 necklace that was supposed to get EMF device away. It's kind of like, okay. it added up, literally. And then not only that, we were told and did, unfortunately, throw away all of our clothes, all of our furniture, all of our decorations, and all those memories that probably, in my opinion, didn't need to be tossed. Maybe some of them, right? So when Brooklyn went all in with brain rewiring, I'm just using her as the example. There's countless of other people who've done this. She ended up not needing to spend hundreds of dollars a month on certain supplements that were meant to help reduce these symptoms, because those health symptoms weren't there anymore, because she did neuroplasticity, right? Like I said earlier, if you're taking a supplement to get more energy and then you implement our process and you naturally have more energy, there's no need for that, right? And obviously now she's working again and feels good to work. Work is good for us, right? Keeps us busy, keeps us productive, keeps us positive, gives us something to do. And a lot of people in our program are getting back to work, right? The body came back into rest and digest, which is, social engagement, or fight, flight, freeze. Social engagement is where we want to be at. People are getting into that every week in our program, like every week. And they're ending up not needing to take all the supplements and all the protocols. And if they are, they just leave it in their practitioner's hands while they put their sole focus on this. And then one of the first questions I got earlier this week from somebody was, it sounds like this is not just a mental help, but a physical help. 100%. That's one of the most common misconceptions with brain rewiring. I need to wait until I detox and do all these things first. It's just for mental health. It's not for physical health. No, it's for both. But it's done through our focus is mind management and spiritual health. To combine the two is crazy not to do it, in my opinion. Anyone who doesn't combine the two, you're still missing a third of it then, your spiritual health, and that's important, obviously. So again, the third and final reason for this is the third and final reason for why your diet, supplements, and things like that may not be working is I kind of hinted at it right there. You may only be addressing the physical part of your health, which is only a small portion of what is required to heal, in our opinion, right? Mind, body, spirit. And in my opinion, body comes last as far as what you take care of. I'm not saying, take care of yourself, be smart, right? Don't just, never sleep and eat a bunch of junk and binge eat and sin. Like, obviously, take care of your physical health. Be a good human, a good steward that Christ called you to be. But, Brooklyn, again, going to her, she's been coaching for many years. And typically when she sees that someone is totally focused on supplements and labs, we ask them, what are you doing for the other two parts of your health, your mind and your spirit? Most of the time, it's nothing. I won't say most of the time, but a lot of the times. And when it comes to healing from health challenges and getting better, again, we believe the mind and spirit is the top. Should be done first, because your body follows, right? If you put all the focus on your physical health, then you're just going to get a third of the results, right? Just conservatively saying that. And when we say physical part, I'm talking the things you're doing physically, right? Like, again, taking the supplements, eating healthy diet, getting good exercise, getting good sleep, getting rid of the infections and toxins and whatever it is. If you're focusing on that, that's a third of it. It's a good start. Not saying it's not important, but what about the other two, right? I think it's more important. It's the less important of the three. For spiritual health, we believe having a strong relationship with Christ and walking in the Spirit in this trial is going to give you that, right? I can't remember what Proverbs it is, but there's something that says, fear the Lord and shun evil. This will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. That's saying if you humble yourself and follow God's way, you will be physically and healthy in your body, and your bones, or your marrow of your bones will be nourished, right? Of course, there's always outliers where God can allow trials to happen for better reasons. But generally speaking, if you follow that, that's true. So we're going to do that, but we're also going to help you get back there and reset to get there. So when you do that, plus rewiring your mind, the chronic fight, flight, freeze, stress response goes away, and the health challenges do with it too. And again, when we say chronic health challenges and symptoms, we mean symptoms that are long-term and they usually come and go. They're symptoms that are typically not life-threatening, and they seem like, although they can obviously sometimes seem like that, things like I'm going to list them here: fatigue, brain fog, insomnia, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, all the digestive ones, sensitivities to all things in the environment, even pain, anxiety, anxious thoughts, depression, those types of things, right? So I'm just listing that. So if you've done everything, or feel like you've done everything in the physical realm, like these diets, these supplements, and these exercises, and these other regimens, but you haven't addressed your mind and spirit, then I highly suggest you highly consider taking next steps with us in one of our memberships if you can. I understand if you financially like absolutely not, I'm tapped out, can't. I'm not saying that, obviously we don't want to put anyone in financial stress, but at the same time, one-time investment and get rid of all that other stuff. I mean, for me, also it was a no-brainer, and that's what was amazing about the process and what we do in our program. Right, our programs address the mind. Or other programs, I should say, can address the mind, but they don't address your health on a spiritual level, which again we believe is number one, and to combine the two is important, right? And I don't think there's anyone out there like that. So, other programs too, when it comes to, or I guess we believe is number one, the spiritual health, right? And I know that rewiring your brain may seem like a lot of work because it's may take, you may heard, oh, it takes 3 to 6 months, maybe more, maybe shorter, but it's a lot more difficult, and it's a lot more difficult than just taking a supplement protocol. Sure, yeah, popping a supplement versus brain rewiring. Yeah, supplement seems the easier route, but usually the easier route's not. It doesn't work, right? So if you could just ask yourself this question, or think about this. If you could just spend 20 to 30 minutes a day working on your mind and your spirit, and you knew you could get your health back in 6 months, would you do it? Comment yes or no. I'm just curious because this is the kind of results we're seeing. If you're busy and don't have much time, it can just be a matter of adjusting your schedule somewhere, which we can help you with, getting up earlier or finding times throughout the day where you can implement this. Remember, it's not like you have to take time to set a bunch of time aside to stop and do some things. There's one primary thing you have to set time aside for. Otherwise, it's all stuff you can do on the go. Okay. We make our process and our program very flexible and modifiable, and you can even start if you just have 5 minutes a day. Like I had a couple people message me, I want to do this, but I'm going to wait till September. It's kind of like, well, by September you could be better. So but I get like if you're literally like, hey, I'm going to be traveling and I'm out of the country and I can't even be on the internet. Well, that's one thing. But when you implement, those who implement our process see the results typically much quicker than 6 months, right? Sometimes within the first couple of weeks. Like that's why I know it can be tempting to try to go and do this on your own because you've seen results already, but there's a lot more to it. And if you want to get things back into your life, like reintroduction, it's going to take some consistent, proper coaching on that because that's the hard part. We've seen people try to do it on their own, maybe do another program or something very basic, right? I'm going to do this on my own. And then I reach out to them 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later, and they're like, I saw mental aspects that were a good positive mindset, but I'm still physically dealing with all this stuff, right? It's more than that. And there's a lot, I think, in my opinion, I think we do that process the best when it comes to reintroduce. And again, you're worth it. I want you to know that. You're absolutely worth it, and your family is too. So if you have an end goal of being healthy, emotionally stable, happy, not stressed about everything, health challenges gone, and eating what you want, and going where you want, and doing what you want. Prioritize this, right? What happens if you wait another 6 months? Things may come up, right? Or one last thing I will say, then I'll jump into questions too here in a minute. So if you haven't commented questions, go ahead and do so. I'm going to try to get my computer pulled back up when it comes to that. I was talking with an individual, I can't remember when it was, but was totally bought in and wanted to do this, saw the value of this, and it's like, okay, I need to get a few things in line. But hey, there's actually 2 friends that were talking to me. One, they both said they're going to do it. One jumped in and started implementing, right? They jumped in from, I don't know, like a couple days in, they started implementing the process, right? After I talked with them. The other one said, I want to do this too. Just give me a little bit of time and I'll reach back out to you when I'm ready. I said, well, what do you got to take care of? Well, I got to do this protocol first. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to tell you don't do it, but you can do this alongside that protocol. But just had other things in mind, and then I'd reach back out again, and I have a bunch of things going on this fall. I can't get started, right? Let me just give you a hint. Things are always going to come up in life. It's like when I was told, everyone's mindset of when's the best time to have kids. It's like there's really not ever a good time. You can never fully prepare for it, right? So as far as I guess my point for this is, when it comes to this process, right? My point with this story is this: the one individual joined, fast forward 6 months, was relieved of all the health challenges and doing whatever she wanted to do. And the other one, still to this day, I reached out to and checked. Still is thinking it's this, and I'm conservative going to guess they probably spent $200,000-$300,000 up to this point, just because it was a lot. And again, not just focusing on monetary, but just the time that was lost. It's the point is, if you believe in this, if you think this process is going to work, I highly recommend either implement what you've known, at least start doing that. If you can't join, I'm not talking to you. If you can't do it, I get it. I'm not trying to convince anybody here, but I'm saying if you're on the fence, just some hot things to think about here, because it's what we had to think about too. And again, just real quick, today's day 5. We have a bonus training starting tomorrow, a live Q&A on Sunday, and then bonus trainings 2 and 3 on Monday and Tuesday. So this workshop's only half over. So if you're sitting there, you have questions about what you've learned this week, or will it work for this? I hope this helps. I know we have a training on that too. Then ask away, right? If not, that's totally fine. Just here, let me see if I can find some questions here. I don't see a lot, so I might. Again, I don't want to. I know it's Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, by the way. Let me see here if I can pull this open. Sorry, my computer is not finding questions here. Okay. Someone said, Julie said, I can tell you from experience that taking 15 to 30 supplements a day is not easier way, especially like Brooklyn. It causes so much stress, which then release more negative chemicals into your body, affects everything. Yeah, exactly. Like, I would agree, like the stress of just not only making sure you do it right, but also like some people may call it's detoxing. It's when you die off or whatever, and it may be. But I also think your body is just in a hypersensitive state, and it's not able to do so. Because remember, if your detox systems aren't really working properly because your limbic system's off or not functioning, you can do the detoxing all you want. I mean, I would speculate that it probably wouldn't be as effective if your detox systems were working properly, right? So I'm not saying you have to go all in and just do this. If you want to still do other things, you can, or maybe do this so you can do other things. That's fine. But that's a good point. Post-menopausal symptom. So yes, when it comes to that, when it comes to like menopause, the natural things of life will occur, right? Obviously. So it's not really saying it can't. I mean, it's not. But to your question, like post-menopausal things like that, right? When you are in a stress response, heightened stress response, health challenges, it manifests differently in people. It comes out differently in individuals, right? But many people we work with in the past that they've had extreme health challenges and symptoms because of that. So your hormone regulation comes from your pituitary gland, which is a part of the limbic system, right? So getting that to normalize and stabilize should help get relief from that stuff as well, from the postmenopausal stuff, or if you have extreme sensitivities or extreme things going on with that process, this most certainly can help with that, yes. Let's see here. Does this address PTSD? 100%. Yep, it does. So PTSD, again, that's a diagnosis. I'm not doctor, so I can't clinically say I'm going to help you with PTSD. But I will tell you this. Most people, in fact, I'd say a majority of the people, our past clients and current clients, whether it's diagnosed or not, it's like, that's where the rewiring process, that's why it's important to do this rewiring process, because all of them likely had some form of that. Because when you have, here, put it this way, when you have a negative experience or a positive experience, the brain, every thought creates a neural pathway in your brain. And the more that thought is thought about and keeps happening, the more it strengthens, right? So picture a dirt road versus an interstate. And the more the extremes on that interstate or that thought, good or bad, the more it becomes wired in, and then your thoughts turn into your emotions and your actions. So if you have a negative experience and there's negative emotions that happen, there's a bad thing that happens. Say you're driving down the road and you get in a car accident, and you're listening to music and you're driving down Central Boulevard, whatever, and you get into a car accident, right? And then there are times where people, like, that song reminds them of that accident. They can't drive down that road because of that bad accident what happened. the type of vehicle they're in, they have to get a new one because they have a negative association with it. Your brain's always creating associations to things good or bad. So will this help with people with PTSD, like negative associations and past experience? Absolutely, it can, because that's what this process focuses on. It's all the what are we wiring into our brains, good or bad? Focus on the good, wire the bad out with our process, right? So yeah, I can help with that, absolutely. I think that's a good question. And the reason I said most people have that is because, yeah, you can have a PTSD from going to the doctor, from getting labs drawn, from going to travel, from whatever it is, from certain people. And then I'll even take the question a little further. Do we focus on past experiences? No, that's not our primary focus. We're future focused, right? Action oriented, future focused. However, when you get into phase 4, which is reintroduce, that's phase 3, my apologies. That's like the last phase. Like, phase is when you reintroduce things. When you get into that phase and you reintroduce things that you have said, this is important to me, I want it back in my life. And you start to reintroduce. And there's a process we help you start with and get to. Things from the past will come up then. That's when we address it. We're not making you go back and try to dig it up to find it. You're going to move forward, and as things come up from the past, that's when you address it, right? Whether it's wiring it out, whether it's adapting to the situation, whether it's accepting the circumstance, whatever it is. And that's what we need to help with. Hope that makes sense. How much time per day would you say the process takes on average? Great question. So setting aside going through the course content, right? So if you listen to our modules, 5 to 10 minutes per video. I'd say if you did 20 minutes a day, you'd be through the content in a short couple weeks, right? So set that aside. The only thing you really have to set your time aside for, as far as actively what we want you to do, is at its peak 30 minutes to 60 minutes a day for our full 7-step exercise, which is broken up throughout the day. And we're not dogmatic about it where it has to be this every single day. Yes, of course, the more you put in, the more you get out. But at its peak, 30 to 60 minutes a day. But most people get up to that after 2 to 6 weeks into the process. So in the beginning, it can be 5 minutes. In fact, you're already implementing now, right? So it's going to build off of that, but more in depth, obviously. So 5 to 10 minutes gets you started. At its very peak, 30 to 60 minutes a day, as far as what we want you to do actively. And that can be broken up. I recommend most people do handful of minutes here, handful of minutes there, and build up. But does insurance companies cover this? Unfortunately not. It has to be primary care doctor thing. But I will say, past clients have either paid for this through a PayPal credit, a care credit, a debit card, credit card, or whatever. Then they have an HSA account or something. Then they go and get reimbursement. Or if you do have an HSA card, you can use that too. If it doesn't work, I know many people have had successful reimbursements or successfully used that. Otherwise, those other options I mentioned too. If you are considering doing it, right, like wanting to do it but trying to say, I need a little bit of, how do I do it? Like the ones I mentioned, PayPal credit and care credit, I think they can give 0% interest rates for a year or something like that. So those are other options. And by the time you're done, you'll be back to work, and you can, won't even be an investment. That'll be getting your life back. Have you seen anyone resolve air hunger from Lyme? So when it comes to air hunger, yeah, that's that's another, again, going back to, yes, we have, to answer your question directly, yes, we have. Air hunger, not a common thing for most people, right? It comes from, but even staying from Lyme, I would just call air hunger in general part of the stress response, right? It comes out differently in people. Air hunger, or not even when it comes to hunger in general, maybe you have no appetite. That was another one that we've seen normalized too. Even though you need to eat, you need to drink water, you're just not hungry or thirsty. Well, that normalizes too. All of that stuff, air hunger, and the different things I just mentioned are all linked up to that too, to the stress response. Can rewiring address, so Kathy says, can rewiring address or correct narcissistic personality? Yes. Yes. Self-centeredness, basically. It's I would kind of link it into being prideful, right? Narcissistic, more self-centered, my kind of thing. That's a don't in the Bible. I think we all struggle with it. But yes, there are extremes. And even Brooklyn, I wouldn't say she was narcissistic, but when it came to being sick, she knew her limits. And what maybe I would look at as that's narcissistic or someone from the outside who doesn't understand, you know, but trying to just control and do certain things a certain way just to get by. That can lead into that, or even just people without being sick who are more narcissistic 100%, because that's, I think, yes, there are some exercises and physical things with the actual mental aspect we can help you with, but even on a spiritual perspective, from Christ's perspective, that is God's in our business of changing hearts and minds, so that's also something we can implement in the process too. Let's see here. So it looks like I'm answering most of the questions. If I missed them, I apologize. I know there's a comment about it. We can't get all of our questions answered. Well, today isn't, just know that on these, if you look, there's like thousands of comments on this, and they just fly by sometimes. It's not like that if you work with us and take next steps. It's obviously more private, more intimate. You pre-submit them to us, so we set the time aside, however long it takes, 60 seconds, 10 minutes, whatever it takes to answer that question on the live. So you'll get your time. Let's see here. When it comes to diabetes, I think I saw a diabetes question. Yeah, so that's kind of like I mentioned earlier. There's someone with that was a diabetic, and her blood sugar levels were more stable than they'd ever been with our implementing this process. So we can help with that. Yes. Would it be helpful for OCD and anxiety? Both. If you go to our testimonies, I think our group team posted quite a few of video ones at least, but yeah, there's one in particular in there that had OCD. There was one that's in the testimonials. I'll have to try to find it and tag you in it. But yeah, OCD and anxiety. Anxiety, I think, let's focus on OCD for a moment. Doing things a certain way because you feel like you have to, right? Even when it comes to the extremes, I have to wash my hands 6 times before I eat food. You can train with that. That's kind of like, training the brain to and rewiring the brain to not do that. And anything in that area, in my opinion, is rewirable. When it comes to anxiety, I think whether diagnosed or not, I'd say, again, between that, anxiety and PTSD, I'd say a bulk of the clients that work with us, whether it's diagnosed or not, they don't identify with it, but some do, but it's in a common thread with most of them. So, yes, can help with that. Anxiety, the Bible has a lot to say about anxiety too, as far as like wiring in scriptures you can do and things like that, but even more so, how do you handle it in person when you're out and about in a social situation that you have not been in years because you've been sick? We work you up to that process. Like phase 1, like there's the recognize, rewire, reintroduce. I'll even kind of explain it a different way. Phase 1 is basically building your foundation, which is getting the process understood in your mind and submitting the assessments to us and giving you a game plan and getting you clear with your goals. And also knowing the different techniques we teach, the different strategies, and the way to go about exposure training, right? If you don't have that foundation built and you try to reintroduce something, it can be a mistake, right? Because you can make you worse. And that's what most people end up doing when they try it on their own, which is what, that's why we want to coach you on this. But then, and then the next phase is, basically reintroducing things back into your life. And there's a way to do that. And it's not the same steps for everything, because we've had some people reintroduce certain foods just like that, piece of cake. But when it comes to going to church, that's a whole other process with different old wired loops that come up, different triggers, different perspectives we need to shift, different beliefs that needs to be challenged. So as you can see, it's not just as easy as 1, 2, 3, do this. I mean, we make it that easy, but that's why we've done the hard work and spent a lot of time and money into doing it, and pour our heart and soul into this private coaching group so we can get you there too. Because obviously, if it wasn't working, people wouldn't be, working with us. But people are seeing these results every week. So my question to you, if you didn't have these anxiety or the feelings of anxiety and the symptoms of it and OCD or PTSD, what would you do? That's one question I want people drop in the chat here. If you didn't have these health challenges, right? Assuming they're gone, right? Don't say my goal is to get rid of this. I don't want to hear that. We already know that, and we're going to help you with that. But this follow-up question is, what would you do without those? What would that mean to you? But more importantly, what would you do? Like, what are some goals you have? I mean, like I said, exercise. What does that exercise look like? Riding your bike? Okay, where do you want to ride your bike? Around the lake, up in the mountains. Okay, awesome. Let's work towards that, because we want specific goals. I want to be more energetic. Okay, what does that mean? Well, more social. Well, what does that mean? I want to be able to serve at my church. Okay, how do you want to serve at your church? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's find that passion and desire out. Do you like to be in front of people? No. Do you want to serve coffee behind the scenes? Sure. I'm just saying, like, we can get as deep with this as we want. And that's what we help you with for the 6 months in the program. Or if you decide to do 3 months, we're going to get you there I would recommend them getting on a fast track of implementing phase 1 for the first in 2 weeks, which is totally easily achievable. Then we can get you reintroducing right then and there. So, sorry, that was a really long answer to a basic question, but people are saying get out more, eat regular food. Yeah, so focusing on the food for a moment. Yes, when we say eat what you want, we mean that, but that may mean something different to you and every individual. So we're not going to judge you if you want to go have McDonald's once a week, right? That's your goal. Fine. We're not going to judge you if you just want to have Whole Foods and that's it. Fine. We'll help you get there, right? So that's why it's personalized. Yes, it's in a group setting, but it's also personalized because outside of submitting those assessments to us, look at that group as Brooklyn and myself and our team, like giving you the coaching you need whenever you want. Sorry if I snapped right in the mic there, but I don't think there's anything out there like that. There's people who try to do that or try to say that, or they come off as this is just like that, but it's not. Like, there's no one, like Brooklyn and I are in the group every day, and our team is there to help you and guide you to get there because we want you. We know what that freedom feels like to get to eating what you want, to be able to, have more energy to do the things you want, to whatever it is, all the different things, and it is a amazing experience. Glory to God. So, someone says, how do we submit questions for Sunday's Q&A session? I believe there's a post that's going to be going out today. We'll pin it to the top of the group. You can comment on it. Let me see this real quick. Bear with me here. I feel like I'm let's see here. I could make plans for going out with friends and not have to cancel because I don't feel good when that comes. Yeah, that's all too close to Brooklyn as well in her experience. She was even fearful of creating plans because she was kind of like having to train people around her to when I feel good. So it's kind of a short notice thing. Breaking plans is never fun. You can even develop PTSD around creating plans or negative associations to it. We can help break that as well. Again, all these things that may seem like if you're afraid or kind of like fearful or worried about what people would think if you ask these questions to us right now, you can message us. But even the basic stuff in life that you may like, some people's wins in the very beginning may seem very basic. I ate a fourth of a bagel. But that is someone will be like, what? That doesn't matter. But to that person who has not had any gluten in a decade and then every time they did eat it, they would be bedbound, but then having a fourth of a bagel for consecutive days in a row is a game changer. We celebrate those wins, and that's just the beginning, right? Just to picture life without all that stuff. That's why I want you to really think about that. There's no homework today. Maybe we'll make one up, but your homework today is what would you do without these health challenges? Be very specific and paint that picture for yourself and think about it. Because that's what I want you to hold on to. Obviously, Christ is the center of this, and we want to hold on to Him. He's the hope. But in this physical world right now, that's what I want you to think about, and what I want you to know is possible and achievable. Let's see. Sorry, I'm not trying to be sound here. I'm just trying to read questions, but I don't really see any questions. So yeah, anyways, I won't stick on your a lot longer unless people happen to pop questions up. But let's see here. what training did you take and where did you get it? Yeah, so that's actually, I don't know, that's a long response. I'll try to keep it very brief though, because it's kind of our story, really. So I jokingly say this, but in all seriousness, Brooklyn's kind of a nerd in a good way. She reads and studies everything. I mean, when we were dating and she was going to become a nurse, I got maybe an hour a week to hang out with her because she was just studying and learning. She likes to do it. So this has been ingrained in her mind for a long time. And she read, but as far as like kind of how it came about, I think she shared this story yesterday, but she was a functional health coach, had one-on-one clients. She's like, well, I'm sick, but trying to help people. Maybe I can help people, and this is just how I'm going to be. I'm going to try to help other people with what I know, putting them on the strict diets and supplements and things like that. Their clients were getting the same results, right? And then she had been reading books on neuroplasticity. She had been studying about it. Some doctors recommended some books and some articles, and she researched on it. And at the same time, when that was happening, and she was putting some basic stuff together to give to her one-on-one clients at that time, I was then creating myself this. I became a life Christian coach, right? Kind of discipleship type thing where I wanted to help people who were caregivers, meaning people who had someone they were helping who was chronically sick. Because they're in pain too, right? There's different levels of pain in life, and one of them can be that, right? Because they're sacrificing a lot too. Not to make us feel bad, but it's just the reality. I felt unheard, and I felt like it's often overlooked. The caregiver often is overlooked. So I was wanting to mentor them and help them through this process. And what happened was we ended up combining the two. My content with her content, it was a total God thing. And that's where this came about. And then we've just built on it, right? We've tested and tried many different things with what works best. And again, going back to like the setup, again, I get it's an investment, but look at it as an investment, not just another payment, because you're investing in yourself and in your health, right? And in this process. And it is tenfold worth what it is when you get to the end. If you knew this would work for you, you do it, right? Yeah. So that's it's unlimited coaching and support. Like, set that stuff aside, right? If I give you unlimited coaching in a private group or unlimited one-on-one sessions, but to the end result, you got there either way, would it matter how you got there? No, the end result is what we're gearing you towards, which is why the homework today is to really think about what would you do without these health challenges. Be specific. List 2 things. Not just, I'd have more energy. Like, what would you do with that energy? And I'd socialize more. What would you do? What does socializing look like? Those are the kind of things I want you to think about. No scholarships, unfortunately. We do we do these free workshops. Like right now, this is the one. I don't know when we'll do another one, but we give out one per, and that person was chosen because they showed up, answered questions. Let's see here. Some people are commenting replay. I'm technically still live. We don't have a book. We've been asked that a lot, but we think this, in my opinion, is better than a book because it's live and you can ask us questions, right? It's kind of like our story, but also what's worked for us. So, but maybe we'll consider something like that in the future, whatever that happens. All right. Well, again, I wanted to sit on here. Does it work for kids? Do you work with kids? Great question, and I'll end on that one. Because I just glanced down. It looks like my comments keep disappearing, but I happen to see that one. Okay. So, do we work with kids, and does this work for kids? Yes, and yes. And here's our experience with that. Obviously, the younger they are, the more it's going to be up to mom and dad to teach them, right? Like, we've seen people as young as 3 get help by this process, and up to their adult years and everything in between. In fact, we've had many people join, mom and dad join, or mom joins, not for themselves. Well, yes, for themselves, but in a different way, but for their kid, because their kid is experiencing this too. Or maybe it's both of them. I can't tell you how many moms and dads have 1 or 2 sick kids, and they're learning behaviors from mom and dad, like, doing certain things too that we're trying to reverse or get rid of. So yes, it can. And it's really, we'll coach you on that too, but it comes down to you. What I recommend there, if you are going to be jumping into one of our memberships with your kid, both go through the content together, or you at least go through it, and then there's action steps there's workbooks you can do, there's milestones, and there's action steps we give you, and you can help them implement it every day. Walk through it and do it with them. In fact, I'm just focusing on the visualization, which is, one step of our 7-step exercise, is pretty fun to do with kids, the visualization part. And in fact, they can get pretty, they're creative and have fun and remember things you don't. And and so that's good. But on a positive note, I'll last say this too. They're very, for the most part, I'd say kids are typically more resilient, so they can bounce back quicker than someone who's, had a lifetime of, doesn't mean that you can't get better from a lifetime of it. Like, we've had people who have been sick, they're in their lower 60s, upper 50s, even up in their lower 70s, get better after a lifetime of being sick. So I don't think you're an extreme case, but kids are typically bounce back quicker. So, yeah. Books that I recommend. I mean, this is gonna sound kind of like definitely reading the Bible. I know you know that, but that's my number one go-to book. I always get I'm just not a reader, if I can be honest with you, except when it comes to scripture. If I read, I want to learn. And I really like to, I guess, implement, because there's a lot of Proverbs, at least. Read the book of Proverbs, because there's lots of great mindset tips in there too. If you're, I mean, maybe you already know that, but that's my tip there. That's what I recommend. But anyways, all right, everybody, I'll jump off here. Remember, we're back again tomorrow for our bonus day 1. So, but until then, again, enrollment's open. It's going to be closing here soon. So olympicsystemrewire.com/workshop. You can click on the cover photo. It's there. Otherwise, thank you all. If you're watching this right now, live or replay, and you've been sticking with us this week, I want to give you a congratulations and props, because that says a lot about you. It means you're committed and you really have that drive. That is one of the key indicators that this will work for you too. Just want you to know that. Like, you have to want to do something in order to do it. And if you're watching this and you've been with us for 5 hours up to this point, I mean, really consider taking next steps, because that alone is an awesome indicator of just a quicker result. Anyway, all right, everybody. God bless you all. Godspeed. We'll see you tomorrow.